Welcome to our block of the month for 2023. This is the March block. You can make a 10-inch finished block or a 5-inch finished block, or both. For this block, you will need a light fabric, a medium fabric, and a dark fabric. The pattern will be located at the end of the video. For now, it's time to cut. From a 3.5-inch strip of a light fabric, cut 4 squares that are 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Then you will need to cut 2 rectangles that are 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and then turn that into 2 rectangles that are 3 inches by 5.5 inches. I do it this way so I don't have to cut a 3.5-inch strip and a 3-inch strip. And finally, from the light fabric, you need to cut 1 square that is 6 inches by 6 inches. From the medium fabric, you need to cut 1 square that is 6 inches by 6 inches and 1 square that is 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. From the dark fabric, you need to cut 3 squares that are 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Before I step away from the cutting table, I am going to also cut my pieces for my 5-inch block and for my Christmas version and my red and white version. Unless directed otherwise, piece using 1/4-inch seam allowances. Draw a line corner to corner on the wrong side of the light 6-inch square. Place right sides together with the medium 6-inch square and sew a 1/4 inch away from the center line on both sides. Once sewn, you will cut on the drawn line and then press away from the light fabric. You will trim these squares to 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. You don't need both of these, you only need one, so I'm going to save one for another project. For the next part, we'll be using all of the squares that are 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. You can either draw a line corner to corner on the wrong side of the light fabric, or you could use a diagonal seam tape to sew the next part. Put the squares right sides together and follow the line with the bottom corner of the square to sew on both sides of the center line. I love this diagonal seam tape. It saves me a lot of time and it helps me be more accurate. I don't really like drawing those lines, so I would just try to eyeball it at times, and that never quite worked out for me, so I highly recommend the diagonal seam tape. After you've sewn on both sides of the line, you need to cut on the center line, and then you should have 6 half-square triangle units that are made with the dark fabric and 2 that are made with the medium fabric. You're going to press all of these away from the light fabric. Before I head over to the cutting table to trim my block pieces down, I'm going to work on my 5-inch block. I hadn't planned on making all of the 5-inch blocks in all of the colorways, but they're so stinking cute I can't help myself. Now it's time to trim the half-square triangle units to the proper sizes. The large one will be 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and the smaller pieces will be 3 inches by 3 inches. I like to use my block lock ruler for this. It is super accurate, and that channel down the back side really helps me get sharp points on the ends. If you're enjoying our Block of the Month 2023, make sure to click on that like button and subscribe so that you can see all of the blocks this year. When trimming the squares for the small version, you'll cut them down to 3 inches by 3 inches and 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. First, we will piece 2 sets using just the half square triangle units with the dark fabric. Make sure they're exactly alike. Next, we will piece the remaining 2 dark half square triangle units to the medium half square triangle units. Make sure to lay them out as shown. One set is horizontal and the other is vertical. When the block is finished, all the medium fabrics will be next to each other to form the basket part of the quilt block. I decided to press these seams open so they wouldn't be quite so bulky. If you're looking for more videos from our channel, check out our playlists. We have mystery quilts, interviews, project tutorials, and more. Now we're going to piece the 4 corners of the block. The upper left-hand corner will have all the pieces that have the dark half square triangle units. I did pin to make sure that my corner matched right there in the middle since the seams were pressed open. Next, it's time to add the rectangles to the units that have the medium half square triangle unit in them. A visual clue for this one to help you keep the seam ripper in the drawer is to make sure that you're sewing the light rectangle to the side that has the dark or medium fabrics. Next, it's time to press. With the unit that has all triangles, press that seam open down the middle. For the units that have the rectangles, you're going to press towards the light rectangle. Once pressed, all of these units should measure 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. Now it's time to lay it out and make sure we have everything in the right spot. Once we have it laid out correctly, we will sew 2 of the corners to each other on each side, and then we will sew the 2 halves together. You won't have to pin all of these seams, but I did pin in a few places to make sure my corners were matching up. Sometimes when I get to the center of a seam, I'll stop with the needle in the down position and check that everything is still aligned correctly. It isn't always necessary, but sometimes it really helps. Once both of the halves are sewn, you will press towards the pieces that have the rectangles. While I've been sewing on this version of my block of the month, I've also been working on my Christmas colorway and my red and white colorway. I did the 10-inch blocks and the 5-inch blocks in all 3 colorways. All right, we have 1 seam left and then the block is finished. The seam that's in the center should nest together. One final press and this block is finished. Press towards the side with the large triangle. You could also press open if you want to. Once pressed, this block should measure 10.5 inches by 10.5 inches. When you make the smaller version, it should measure 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. I had a pretty good day sewing these. They were almost perfect. And here are my red and white versions of the 10-inch block and the 5-inch block. They turned out so cute. I'm glad I used that little plaid. And here is my Christmas block. So I used green for the basket and red for the top. Don't forget to store your blocks in a safe place, and we will see you again next month. Along with my blocks, I keep the leftover fabric and half square triangle units together so that I could possibly use them in future blocks. A downloadable version of this pattern can be found in the Files section of our Facebook group called The Quilted Forest Friends, or you can push pause and take notes, or take screenshots and print at home. Thanks for watching, and happy quilting!